I'm Lauren Sidney. Coming up in an entertainment news update, musical pioneer and social activist Frank Zappa succumbs to cancer at the age of 52. We'll take a look back at his prolific career as a musician and composer. That story when Newsday continues. Hi, Bobby. On a sad note, musician and composer Frank Zappa has died of prostate cancer at the age of 52. Zappa died Saturday night at his home in Los Angeles and was buried in a private ceremony Sunday, according to a family friend. Dennis Michael looks back now on the career of the Grammy Award-winning artist and social activist who many in the industry viewed as a musical genius.
Zappa came to the attention of an alternately fascinated and stunned listening public as the leader and main musical force of the Mothers of Invention, turning out albums with titles like Uncle Meat, Weasels Ripped My Flesh, and Lumpy Gravy, establishing the contempt for traditional musical styles that the punk rock movement would catch up with 20 years later. He never wrote a love song.
The amount of damage that has been done over the years by love songs is almost incalculable, because a love song creates the desire for a situation which will never be created in real life. So it just breeds frustration. A kid grows up listening to love songs, and he's comparing his life to what's being talked about on the record. And he ain't never going to get it. You know, so it mutates him.
There was, however, for Frank Zappa, a sincere and deep love of music, both dissonant and cacophonous, or lyrical, and most especially humorous.
Your stink foot with the hurts on my door.
In the mid-'80s, music's iconoclast found nothing remotely humorous about the campaign to censor rock music and tirelessly fought it, donning the uniform of Capitol Hill and State House in order to oppose sticker bills and censorship movements with equal parts wit and logic.
There's no need for it. The idea that the lyrics to a song are going to cause antisocial behavior as an exclusive cause of antisocial behavior, I think, is not supportable by science.
Through his career, Zappa has worked with a number of contemporary classical artists, and classical musicians are often eager to sing his praises. In the late 80s, Zappa affectionately supported the careers of two of his children, guitarist Dweezil and daughter Moon Unit, an actress and a singer. He spent much of his time in his home studio, cataloging and digitizing a vast body of compositions and live performances.
It's hard for me to even listen to those early albums. I know there's a market for them. There are people who want to have them on CD, and so I hold my nose and get in there and fix them up.
Frank Zappa's formal training in music theory was a brief course in a junior college in California. In the future, it's expected the music of Frank Zappa will be the subject of study. He was a unique voice in 20th century music.
And that is it for now, but for the very...
Rocker Dweezil Zappa and his brother Ahmet are featured in the January issue of Playgirl magazine. The article describes the brothers as bearing body and soul for the interview. The two, who are Frank Zappa's sons, talk about their new album, Shampoo Horn. According to Playgirl, the brothers are comfortable with their odd names. They differ on relationships, though. Dweezil says he goes through long dry spells, while Ahmet likes a lot of girlfriends. Tom Selleck went looking.
Zappa died Saturday at his California home from prostate cancer. He was 52. Zappa rose to popularity in the 60s, making music with his band, The Mother of Invention. Most recently, he was involved in the fight against warning labels on recorded material, waging his own battle against what he called censorship.
The pop music world is mourning the loss of eccentric rock and roll legend Frank Zappa. The musician, filmmaker, and social activist died this weekend after a 2-year battle with prostate cancer. He was 52. Reporter Andy Culpepper looks back now at the life of one of entertainment's unique artists.
Frank Zappa wore many hats in his long career. With his group, The Mothers of Invention, the musician and activist released dozens of albums that highlighted his unusual brand of music and lyrics. In 1982, Zappa had his most commercial hit with the song Valley Girl. It featured his daughter Moon Unit using the then popular vowel speak.
Barf me out, gag me with a spoon.
By the mid-'80s, the musician felt contemporary music had lost its social impact.
My view is that rock a long time ago was more oriented toward democracy, and now it's more oriented toward selling beer and soda pop.
Zappa also experimented with film and video satire. One of his favorite topics was American politics.
Politics to me is kind of a joke. I've said before in other interviews, and I'll say it again, that politics is the entertainment branch of industry.
One political right Zappa defended was freedom of speech. In 1986, Tipper Gore's Parents Music Resource Center and the Maryland State Legislature were pushing to pass record labeling legislation. Zappa's testimony before the legislature helped kill the bill.
Because all you got to do is look around at all the normal kids who listen to it and live with it every day, who do not commit suicide, they don't commit murder, and they grow up to be, in some cases, legislators.
Frank Zappa was both entertainer and teacher. He developed a devoted following that listened to his music and read his books. He's survived by his wife and 4 children. His daughter Moon and sons Dweezil and Ahmet are all in the entertainment industry. Zappa's passing means the music industry and our culture has lost an original and distinctive voice. Andy Culpepper, Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
Though he was very ill, Zappa kept working. He released his final album, Yellow Shark, earlier this year.
Died of prostate cancer over the weekend. He may be one of the best-selling Grammy winners you never heard. Zappa sold millions of records, but they were rarely played on the radio. They were considered too bizarre and sometimes too raunchy. Frank Zappa was 52.
To raunchy behavior. I recorded a song about dental floss, he said. And people don't have cleaner teeth. He died of prostate cancer, and he was 52. In a moment.
And a federal judge today threw out a criminal indictment that charged Minnesota's Republican Senator David Durenberger with falsifying expense accounts. The judge said the Justice Department acted improperly while gathering evidence. And an icon of the rock and roll culture died over the weekend. Frank Zappa, a victim of prostate cancer. Through his music, he was a wickedly funny social critic of everything from war to Valley Girls to censorship. Zappa was just 52.
Thanks, Leonard. He named 2 of his 4 children Moon Unit and Dweezil and wrote songs like Don't Eat the Yellow Snow and Shake Your Booty. The outrageous and very talented Frank Zappa died Saturday of prostate cancer. He was 52. Zappa made music that couldn't be pigeonholed and had opinions that would not be stifled.
Eat that pork, eat that ham, laugh till you choke on Billy Graham.
Frank Zappa's music was filled with biting social commentary, so it was no surprise in the mid-'80s that he fought to keep warning labels off of records deemed by Tipper Gore and others to be unsuitable for children. He put on a suit and tie to testify at a congressional hearing.
The PMRC proposal is an ill-conceived piece of nonsense which fails to deliver any real benefits to children, infringes the civil liberties of people who are not children.
He also crusaded against some TV evangelists.
They're trying to take the entire country back to the point where it's almost Inquisition time again. And I don't see anybody willing to stand up and take a shot back at these guys.
Started singing the blues, 'cause they thought it was manly.
Zappa prided himself on being an innovator. Even in the 60s, he was outside the rock and roll mainstream. Here he dispenses advice to Davy Jones of the Monkees in the 1968 movie Head.
Yeah, it doesn't leave much time for your music. You should spend more time on it because the youth of America depends on you to show the way.
Yeah?
Yeah.
He poured a lot of money from his rock records into the staging of his more experimental, serious music. Zappa said he lived to create art, and he did just that, always on his own terms.
I'm not weird, I'm different, that's all. And being different is not necessarily bad. In fact, it's very useful in a society that needs to have more different people who will not do ordinary things.
The search for a
battle with cancer. Fabio wants your love letters. These stories and much more up next on E! News Daily. Hello, everybody. I'm Bianca Farrar. This is E! News Daily, our 30-minute look at the latest in entertainment news. Frank Zappa will be remembered as an innovative and outspoken Grammy-winning musician. He died Saturday after a long battle with prostate cancer. In his first bow in the media spotlight, he was the leader of the outrageous Mothers of Invention. But as the book on his life closed, he was much more. As an experimental composer and musician, his work stretched the boundaries of rock, jazz, and classical music. As a social observer, his song lyrics challenged its listeners to question authority and to think for themselves. For a project called Zappa's Universe, he created a show and a band with his son, Dweezil, that would continue to echo his music and his message.
Mr. America, walk on by the supermarket dream.
As a political activist, he went up against Tipper Gore and those who were calling for record labeling.
Now, do we really want this America? This is what you get. You voted for Reagan, he appointed the judges, and for the next who knows how many years, you're going to be living with this type of stuff. This week it's a record store. Maybe next week it's your store. We have to do something about this.
But it was not politics, but ultimately music that was Zappa's passion. From the beginning, he established a habit of spending days on end in the recording studio. During his 3-decade career, he recorded over 50 albums. But Zappa never forgot his inauspicious recording debut, scoring a B-movie soundtrack.
Thank you.
Frank Zappa was 52.
And trying to keep calm.
At the age of 52 from prostate cancer.
Frank Zappa battled prostate cancer for several years. He was on his way to a performance Saturday before he died. Zappa came to prominence in the 60s with his band, the Mothers of Invention. He was unconventional even for then, and wrote raunchy lyrics to satirize American mores.
Foot dog. Your stink foot with some hurts on my door.
Zappa made 50 albums, was regarded as a virtuoso rock guitarist, and won a Grammy for his Jazz from Hell album in 1988. He joked that music company executives frequently reminded him that his music had no commercial potential. Zappa's children include guitarist Dweezil Zappa and daughter Moon Unit Zappa, with whom he did Ballet Girl.
Zappa was buried Sunday in Los Angeles. When a reporter once asked Zappa how he wanted to be remembered, he said, "I don't care." Very honest in his approach to life and apparently also to death.
And different.
Anthony Collins, CNN, Washington.
Well, almost all of the Chicago area people we spoke with this evening would have decided this case differently. The Boy Scout ruling is the subject of tonight's continue efforts to end what it calls the irrational discrimination against atheists.
In Los Angeles, the sensational Menendez brothers case is wrapping up with closing arguments set to begin tomorrow. The rock world loved him, he gave his children strange names, and he liked to fight publicly with Tipper Gore. But tonight, the legendary Frank Zappa has died of prostate cancer. Zappa's popularity started in the 60s when he wrote songs for, sang, and played lead guitar with the Mothers of Invention. His compositions stretched the boundaries of rock, jazz, and classical music and tested the limits of free speech. In 1985, he appeared before a congressional panel to say Tipper Gore's efforts to censor rock music were ridiculous. He believed antisocial and deviant behavior stemmed from far more than raunchy lyrics. Zappa was 52 years old. His wife and 4 children, Moon Unit, Dweezil, Ahmet, and Diva, were with him when he died at his Los Angeles home.
Los Angeles home yesterday. He died Saturday after a 2-year battle with prostate cancer. Throughout his career, Zappa has been a defender of artistic freedom, fighting censorship in the mid-'80s. Zappa consistently set musical trends, such as the release of rock's first double album back in 1966. He was
Frank Zappa.
Zappa, the musician and anti-censorship activist, has died at 52 after a long bout with prostate cancer. Zappa's music included rock, jazz, and classical. You may remember his 60s group, the Mothers of Invention. He always was anti-establishment and recently took on groups calling for record labeling. His wife and 4 children were with him when he died on Saturday. He was buried in a private ceremony in Los Angeles.